Hello everyone. I think all of you must be pretty busy right now because the exams are fast approaching and you don't have much time left. I hope you all have watched all the video classes of FSCM by now, and if you haven't, I suggest you complete them as quickly as possible. Now let's get to the business, the case studies. Initially, I plan to discuss only 3 or 4 case studies from the Case Studies Digest published by ICAI. However, after looking at the case studies, I realized that there's a wide range of case studies with lots of variety in them. By variety, what I mean is not only different chapters, but the case studies cover different styles also. Some case studies are simple and straightforward, some are detailed and layered, and some are numericals oriented, and so on. So I thought it's better if I discussed all the case studies. So I'll be uploading the discussion videos for each and every case study in the Case Study Digest. Initially, we will upload the discussion videos of the first 5 case studies. And within the next 1 week or so, we will upload the discussion videos of the remaining 10 case studies also. Now, before you start watching the respective videos of the case studies, I have a few instructions for you. I want you to watch these videos only when you are ready, that is, only when you can fully pay attention. Don't watch these videos casually because it will not serve the purpose. Remember, the video classes that you watched previously, that is, the video classes on the 17 chapters and the SEBI regulations, they will be completely useless unless you know how to approach the case studies. Because in the exam, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have, all that matters is can you solve the case studies or not? That is the most important thing. So I repeat, watch the discussion videos on the case studies only when you can fully pay attention and when you're fully ready. And one more important point. Before you watch any particular discussion video, I want you to read, that is, I want you to go through the respective case study first. Now, how will you go through the case study? Will you read the details of the case study first, or will you read the questions first and then read the case study? That's entirely up to you. But my suggestion is first go through the questions and then read the case study. Because once you know the questions, you will know what parts of the case study you need to focus on and what details you have to pay attention to. Once you complete this entire exercise, only then start watching my video discussions on that particular case study. Now you must be wondering, why is it so important for you to go through the case study on your own first and then to watch the video? Because what will happen is, if you watch the videos directly, you will watch them casually and you will never get an opportunity to realize whether the approach that you have towards the case studies is right or wrong, and whether your thought process is actually structured in a way that is suitable for an open book exam or not. Please understand one thing. For a traditional exam, you can directly read the answer, memorize the answer, and write that answer in the exam. But that approach will not work for the elective paper. For the elective paper, as each case study is unique, you should learn about your own approach first. That is, you should learn what your current approach is, and then once I start discussing the case study and you start watching it, only then you will realize whether you are on the right track or not. That is, whether you have the right approach or not. And let's say you don't have the right approach, then you will start correcting your approach. That is what you're going to do. So I repeat, for this paper, you will learn more by committing mistakes and learning from the mistakes rather than by directly looking at the answers. So that's all about the case study videos. Now I will give you a few instructions for the main exam. I already gave some instructions in the YouTube video in which I analyzed the Jan 2021 FSCM paper. If you haven't watched it, I advise you to watch the first 15 to 20 minutes of that video. Alright, so what are my instructions for the exam day? Number 1, please understand that the first 1 hour of your exam is very, very crucial. That first 1 hour is going to set the tone for the next 3 hours as well. Therefore, how you feel during the first 1 hour can decide your result also. That's why it's very important to select the easiest case study first. You should start with the easiest case study. You should start your exam with the easiest case study. This is very important. If you do that, your confidence will improve and it will also ease your anxiety. If you are feeling anxious during the first 1 hour, what will happen is, as you are answering the easiest case study, you are going to score well, so your confidence is going to increase and your anxiety is going to reduce. And once your anxiety is reduced, then during the next 3 hours, you will be able to focus better and you will be able to even solve complex and difficult case studies. However, if you do the exact opposite, that is, on the contrary, if you start with a difficult case study, it is possible that it will spoil your entire mood and your anxiety could increase also. So, I repeat, start with the easiest case study and then move on to the next easy one and so on. However, recently I heard about one particular strategy. I think one of the faculty members came up with this strategy, and let me tell you that I don't agree with this strategy. First, let's discuss this strategy. So, what is this strategy? As per this strategy, it is better to choose the case study that you will not attempt rather than choosing the 4 case studies that you will attempt. So, what they are saying is, anyways, as you have to answer 4 case studies, it is better to choose the one which you are not going to attempt. As I told you, I don't agree with this logic. I don't agree with this particular strategy. Because understand one thing, deciding which is the most difficult case study in the first 15 minutes or in the first half an hour is not that easy. For example, initially you may feel that one particular case study, let us say case study number 3, is the most difficult. But later, once you start solving, you may realize that some other case study number 5, is much more difficult. That is possible. So, just to follow my advice, as per my advice, don't worry about which is the most difficult one and all. Try to choose the easiest case study. Focus on finding out which is the easiest case study and answer it. So, in the first 15 minutes, your job is to find out the easiest case study. Even if it takes more than 15 minutes, it's still okay. So, in the first 15 minutes or half an hour, if you come across any of the difficult case studies or moderately difficult case studies, just ignore them. Don't worry about them. Your focus should be on finding out which is the easiest case study and then start answering it. And later you can think about the other case studies. Next, if there is any case study on SEBI regulations, on any of those 5 SEBI regulations, please try to answer that case study as much as possible. Try not to leave it. Even though you may not know the answers for some of the questions on the SEBI regulations initially, you can still search for the answer. You will definitely find the answer within the SEBI regulations. When it comes to SEBI regulations, they usually don't ask out of the box questions. However, that is not the case with the 17 chapters, the main 17 chapters. When it comes to these 17 chapters, they can ask out of the box questions. So, I repeat, it's always better to answer the case studies that focus on SEBI regulations. Now, let's discuss about the descriptive questions. I think you all are aware that there will be MCQs and descriptive questions. MCQs are 40 marks and descriptive questions are for 60 marks. So understand that most of the times each descriptive question is actually a combination of 2 or 3 questions. For example, if there is one descriptive question for 4 marks, it is actually a combination of 2 or 3 questions, and each sub question is for 1 mark or 1.5 mark, 2 marks. They may not state it. They'll just state that the question is for 4 marks, but internally there is a sub classification. So It is not one question. Remember, it is a combination of two or more questions. Unfortunately, what I observed is that many students are answering, that is, in those descriptive questions, many students are answering only the main question and they are not focusing on the sub questions. Please don't commit that mistake. You have to answer each and every sub question to get full marks. Otherwise, you will not get the full marks. And one more thing, let's say you don't know the answer for the main question. It's still okay. You will be able to answer the other parts of the question. So remember this point, marks are awarded for each and every part of the answer. So don't think that if I can't answer the main question, how can I answer the other related questions? You will be able to answer, and if you do that, you will get the marks. May not be full marks, but at least proportionate marks. Okay. Now my next advice is, for you, it is always better to answer a case study with lots of 1 mark and 2 mark questions rather than answering those case studies which have essay type questions, that is 5 mark or 6 mark questions. In case of such questions, that is essay type questions, or if when they ask you to write reports, etc., it's rather difficult to understand how the marks are actually allotted. That is why, if possible, choose the case study with more questions, that is with more 1 or 2 mark questions rather than essay type questions or report writing questions, etc. Alright, now my next advice to you is, please don't write any generic or unnecessarily lengthy answers. Try to be very specific. Try to write point wise. Sometimes students think that they have lots of knowledge about a particular topic and they feel like showing it, exhibiting their knowledge. No, don't do that. You can show off or exhibit your knowledge during job interviews, and during those job interviews the interviewer could get impressed, but such knowledge exhibition in an examination is not a good idea. An exam is not an opportunity for you to exhibit your knowledge. An exam is an opportunity for you to get marks. The focus of an examination should be on marks. That's it. So try to be very specific and to the point. Don't beat about the bush during the examination. Now, one common observation among the students is, the students usually get excited if the paper is easy and they get depressed if the paper is difficult. I mean, I can understand that. I can understand why they behave like that. I can understand what emotions the students are going through, and such behavior is quite natural. But understand one point. Irrespective of the level of difficulty, for a given paper, as an examinee, your job is to get the maximum possible marks. That's it. As an examinee, your only job is to get as many marks as possible. During the exam, your focus should be on marks and marks only. So don't worry whether the paper is easy or difficult, whatever it may be. You should try to maximize the marks during the exam. That's it. So, for example, if there is a 2 mark question, what you should be thinking is, how many points can I write? Can I write at least 1 or 2 points? So, your focus should be only on what you can do, and you should not focus on what you can't do. Even a student who thinks he can score only 50 or 55 marks can easily increase the score to 60. All he has to do is think where he can steal those additional marks. Maybe 1 mark here, a half mark there. So if you add up all these additional half marks or 1 marks, you can easily score an extra 5 to 10 marks. Remember that. Now let's discuss about numericals, that is sums. When it comes to numericals, some students are good at it and some students are not so good at it. So I will leave it to your choice, that is whether you're going to solve the numericals or not, that's entirely up to you. But if you decided to solve the numericals, my suggestion for you is try to break down the calculations into multiple parts, so that even if you commit mistakes in some parts, you will get marks for the other parts. Remember, ICAI gives you marks in a stepwise manner and not for the final answer. Lastly, in some case studies, ICAI is asking case-based questions. That is, these questions are based on the specific case study and they are not direct in nature. That is, you can't find the answers directly in the study material. What I observed is that many students are actually afraid of answering such case studies or questions. Let me tell you, such questions or case studies are not difficult to answer. They are relatively easy. They are easier than what you think they are. But you need to have some patience. It will take some time for you to first of all read the case study, understand it, and then also to understand the requirements of the questions. And then you should link the information given in the case study to that particular question. So if you have some patience, even though it is going to take a little more time, you can still answer them and get good marks. So don't be afraid of attempting such case studies. Now some students are asking us, what should they carry to the exam hall? Now these are the things that you should carry. You should carry the FSCM material, that is both ICAI study material and Catalyst material. You should also carry the SEBI regulations, whether it is ICAI published SEBI regulations or whatever it is, you have to carry the full text of SEBI regulations. You should carry the SFM material also, and if you can't carry SFM material, you should at least carry the formula book for SFM. And if possible, please carry the CA Inter Financial Management formula book. Yes, you have to carry it because they are asking some questions based on CA Inter Financial Management also, at least some numericals. Now some of the students are asking, what about SEBI circulars? See, there are many SEBI circulars, like lots of them are there. So it is rather difficult to carry all of them to the exam hall. Most probably ICAI may not ask questions based on SEBI circulars, and even if they ask for max 3 to 4 marks, that's it. And even if they ask questions on the SEBI circulars, and even if you carry those SEBI circulars to the exam hall, most of you will face difficulty in searching the answer in those circulars. So just think about it before you carry all those SEBI circulars to the exam hall. Just think about it. But it's okay to carry the recent circulars, particularly those circulars related to COVID. I mean, after the COVID pandemic hit the country, SEBI passed some circulars, so you can carry them, but you don't need to carry all of them. Okay, then what about the mapping sheet or the glossary or the alphabetical index, whatever is the name you give to it? So anyways, we are going to give you a mapping sheet and a glossary of the important terms. But frankly speaking, this is my opinion, this mapping sheet or glossary, they are not very important for the exam. ICAI recently has been asking questions in such a way that these mapping sheets or alphabetical index may not help you much in the exam. Of course, the mapping sheet can help you with the SEBI regulations, but when it comes to the 17 chapters, I don't think this mapping sheet or the alphabetical index or the glossary, whatever it is, I don't think it is going to help you much. So yeah, if they ask any questions on SEBI regulations, yes, please refer the mapping sheet. It could prove to be helpful to some extent, but again, don't over depend on this mapping sheet or glossary. Alright, when you look at a question, you should be able to easily spot to which particular chapter that question belongs to, or to which particular regulation, to which particular chapter of the regulation it pertains to. You should not rely on these mapping sheets or glossaries. That is my opinion. So those are all my instructions for you for the exam. So remember one thing, keep it simple and stay confident. You will succeed for sure. I am supremely confident that all my students are going to perform extremely well in this FSCM examination. So anyways, all the best.